Good morning, everybody. This is Jim Feist in Las Vegas, and today, special guest JoeMac is back with me from New York. Joe, I know that we did a podcast about a week ago, and it was very successful. A lot of people listened to that, and welcome back.
Great to be back, Jim, and I know there's a lot to talk about today.
Oh, my goodness. We start with the hockey, with that incredible save that the Capitals had to win that game or to keep it from being tied. I lost that bet because I had over 5.5, and I thought it was good going into the third period, but it didn't happen. But, you know, last night, I know you and I both had the dog. We had the plus points with Cavaliers, and I also had the total over, which I would have won in regulation because I got a good number. But for most people, they needed the overtime to get the over. But poorly officiated game. I know you agree with that. You know, the recall on the charge block thing. I mean, that's such a controversial call. It always has been. It always will be. I've heard arguments on both sides of it. I'm not going to get involved in that one. But the Draymond Green stuff that he pulls and the hitting LeBron across the face and not getting penalized for that and all that, the stuff that I know you have strong feelings about, and I'm just going to turn it over to you to do a rant on this thing.
Oh, all right, it's good because I'm in the mood to rant. As you said, Jim, we both were on the right side last night, and boy, I mean, it got awfully close to having one of the worst beats of all time. I mean, when you really think about it, if LeBron doesn't block that, Stephon Curry drives to the hoop there late, who knows? Maybe Golden State wins by 14 or something, but that would have been a real disaster. But yeah, you know what? To me, I watched all the post-game stuff that went deep into the night here, you know. I really felt like the Cavaliers got a bad whistle all night. It wasn't just that controversial play. And let's start from there. 36 seconds ago, everyone has seen the replay a gazillion times by now. Durant, you know, cutting to the hoop, has his man beat, bounces off for James. Did James have his feet set? Was he still moving his upper body? I mean, I've seen 20 different opinions in the last 18 hours, and they're split down the middle. I thought it was a charge. I could look at the replay another 20 times and then maybe change my mind and say, okay, he shifted his body over LeBron. He initiated contact. The bottom line is, at least as far as I know, the rule there is, okay, they're checking inside the last 2 minutes to see if he was in the restricted area. Once you see that he was not, and he was not even close, I mean, all this talk about, well, 1 foot went in. That was the other defender who got bounced into that after the contact. But once you saw that LeBron was nowhere near the restricted area, why are they reversing a call on the court then? That they wouldn't reverse, let's say, with 5 minutes to go in the third quarter or with 4 minutes to go in the first quarter. Why are you reversing that? It's a terrible rule. It's just an awful rule, and it obviously killed the Cavs there. I mean, instead of getting the ball back with a 2-point lead and, you know, very likely icing the game, you know, look at the spot they got put in. Durant goes, hits to the foul shot. It just, to me, you know what, I've seen these refs before, and they're supposedly the cream of the crop guys. I mean, let's face it, it's NBA Finals Game 1. You want to put, if you're the league, you want to put your best 3 officials, or at least 3 of your top 4 or 5 officials on the court. I mean, they had an awful game, and they, you know, whether that's the rule or not with the replay, it's all box stuff. It's a terrible rule. The NBA really, to me, should be ashamed of themselves today. I mean, they really, you know, I mean, they had a great game, one of the great entertaining NBA Finals games, one we've seen in a long time. And it all, to me, it's all just controversy the next day. It all blew up in their face. But, you know, I really felt for LeBron, 51-point night, did everything he could possibly do. And, you know, he seems to me to be the one superstar in my lifetime in the NBA that does not get the favorable calls. I don't understand it. I don't know, you know, what the refs were looking at with some of them. You talked about it, Jim, but Draymond Green whacked him in the eye. We all saw LeBron had that bloodshot type of eye. And, you know, I mean, 90% of the time that's called a flagrant foul, and it's technical, and Cleveland gets the ball and all that stuff. But instead they call it a common foul. I don't get it, but Cavalier Nation, as we were saying, look, the really got to be up in arms today, and the officiating, it didn't cost him everything. Let's face it. I mean, George Hill has to hit those 2 free throws. J.R. Smith has to have a clue about what the score is, all that stuff, but the officiating was terrible, and that rule itself is just awful.
I don't have to say anything except I totally 100% agree with everything you said. I think Draymond Green is a classless player. I think he's always been a classless player, and I think he brings down the reputation and the feeling that people have for the Warriors, who is a great team, but they're not as focused as they used to be. This is not the same team it was 2, 3, 4 years ago. They have an attitude about them. They're kind of complacent. They read their own press clippings. This is the explanation I have for why they don't play well in the first half. And now last night they made up an 11-point deficit in the last couple minutes, which kind of threw off what I expected to happen there. But they don't come out with the same passion and desire they used to. And it's hard to be successful for a long period of time. They're all very wealthy. They've all had success. They all got a bunch of rings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that affects people in all walks of life. So I think that's what the reason is behind their complacency, so to speak, in the first half of games. But then when they decide to play, they're amazing, and if it wasn't for LeBron James, who's, in my opinion, the best player I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen a lot of them, and there's a lot of great ones, and the Magics and the Birds and the MJs, and there were so many, but he is just at a different level physically, and one of the reasons is because he's physically so large and quick and sort of almost indestructible. I hate to say that about a human being because no human is indestructible, but he certainly has been in his career. Great game. I really enjoyed it. There was the proficiency from outside. The outside shots were poor, but the offensive rebounds that Cleveland got made up a big difference, and they got a lot of second chance points, which was big. And how does this affect the team going forward when they feel obviously that they got the short end of the whistles, and I agree they did. And then of course the end result was of their own making because Hill missed the foul shot, as you said, and then JR decided that he had no idea what the hell was going on the planet. But and whether he would have made the shot, I mean, he had a position there. He could have tried a layup, but there's a lot of big wood in there that could have defended him too. So we don't know what would have happened. But what happens going forward? What kind of a mental scar does this put on Cleveland, or do they come back with more fire?
That's the $64,000 question, Jim. I'll tell you one thing, just to touch on the Warriors themselves as a team. I agree with you 100%. They've become a little too arrogant, and maybe they've been this way for a while. But to me, it really shows through now. They're a very hard team to root for. I mean, if you're not a fan, if you don't live in the Bay Area, you're not a longtime fan of Golden State. They're very hard to root for these days. Just to touch on 2 things last night, you talked about Draymond Green. I mean, I can't take him anymore. I mean, I really can't take his whole game. I mean, he gets in guys' faces, clap, and this and that. Okay, he made a big 3 last night. He made a great pass on a big 3 ball by Klay Thompson that gave him a 5-point overtime lead. I'm not saying he's not a great role player. He is just so annoying to watch. And he does all these things that like a 5'9" guy would do, like a little guy just to get under your skin. I mean, he's a 6'8", 6'9" guy. And I hate using the word, but he plays like a punk, a lot. And it really is disturbing to watch that kind of stuff. And the other thing, and I know it was an argument last night with that, the whole scene at the end where Livingston took the shot because the shot clock was running down. There's no reason to take that shot there. Dribble out, I see teams all the time. They dribble out the shot clock. They have an 8-point lead with 3 seconds to go in the game. Dribble out the clock, hand the ball to the ref, the game is over. They got to shoot the ball. Then, the Cleveland guy, Thompson, has a problem. Golden State, to me, is in the last night's game and in some of these playoff games, it's like they look for a little side note to keep them interested. And they just, I don't like it. I don't care for their attitude. And again, they're an easy team to root against. Now, the problem for Cleveland is what is going to be the mindset. I mean, you just got an epic game from James. I mean, he scored 51 points. He sat out a few minutes, so he actually was able to get some rest this night. But, I mean, this is a guy that scored 51 points on 32 field goals. I mean, he had 10 of 11 free throws. He did everything he could do. And they got the 20-point game that we talked about the other day, that if they were going to make any hay in these games, they needed a sidekick, whether it's Kevin Love or J.R. Smith or Jeff Green. They needed another 20-point guy. Well, they got it from Love, who was shaky from three, but still gave them a pretty workmanlike game. And they still couldn't do it. And as you said, they killed them on the offensive glass. 19-4, Cleveland had the advantage on the offensive board. It goes to show you, Jim, there's such a small margin for error for the Cavaliers in this series. If you really break down and you get away from the controversial plays and the missed foul shot by Hill and the J.R. Smith brain cramp, think about it. Larry Nance Jr., who gave him a good energy, played almost 20 minutes last night. He missed 3 foul shots that were deadly. The kid Clarkson came in to 3 terrible 3-point shots. A couple of them weren't even close. Those little moments, I mean, one change here and there, you know what I'm saying? That makes the difference. The game may not have gone overtime. Who knows how it would have gone. But the Cavaliers have such a small margin for error. I don't know how they're going to come out here. I know the talk. I was watching some shows today. Everyone's saying, "Oh, they're going to get all the calls down after last night." That's not going to happen. I mean, hopefully the officials just call a fair and square game. But I think the Cavaliers right now are going to be very hard pressed to hang in game 2. I mean, if they can hang around on the perimeter, on the periphery of this game, be down 5 or 6 with 2 minutes to go. They hope for the best. I think it's a very tall order. We've seen this many times where teams lose a devastating game, and they just don't, they don't practice as good the next couple of days. Their mind is not right. I think it's a very, it's one of these cases where you look back, and if the Warriors win the series in 4 or 5, you say, let's face it, Game 1 was everything in this series, and I'm afraid for the Cavaliers' sake, winning this series is going to be next to impossible now, and winning Game 2 is going to be close to impossible. Whether they can cover the number or not, we don't know. But, hey, we also have to wait and see if they're going to have all their members on this team here, with talk of Love and or Thompson maybe getting suspended. So things might go from bad to worse for the Cavs between now and Sunday night.
You don't mean Love being suspended, you mean Tristan Thompson.
Well, no, there's talk also, as we do this show, that Love was standing on the court. He was off the court. He was on the bench, but he was standing. His feet were literally on the court during that little skirmish with Tristan Thompson, and that there's some replays that show that he took a step or 2 forward. So that if the league holds him to the fire and says he started, leaving, he was in the process of leaving the bench, they could really suspend him for Game 2. I think it would be a terrible, hideous call, and another rule that I don't love, but it's possible. If you see it, I was watching it late last night, and they were showing him. I mean, he's standing on the court harmlessly. He was really trying to get the officials' attention after Thompson and Green were having their little confrontation. But Love was technically on the court. He took a step or 2 forward, and I said, geez, if they suspend him for this, that would be horrible. But I don't know. I don't think the league will do it, but it's something to keep in mind in the next 24 to 48 hours.
I doubt it'll happen. They might as well just cancel the games. Start, or maybe they should suspend the officials because they don't know what the hell they're doing. And
Well, we lived through that here in New York. It has to be 20 years now with the Heat and Knicks, and not to just go back in history here. But there was a brawl many years ago with Charlie Ward, who was a point guard for the Knicks, and I think it was P.J. Brown for the Heat. They were in the middle of a skirmish, and the Knicks, both teams had a few guys leave the bench, and the Knicks wound up losing out Patrick Ewing's services for a Game 6 at the Garden because Ewing had stepped forward towards this skirmish. So, it was 20 years ago, but the league ruled in that way that the handful of guys on both teams that stepped towards the confrontation on the court all got suspended. And it was so crazy. If you remember, Jim, they suspended guys on the Knicks like in alphabetical order because there were like 7 guys that walked on the court, So what they did is they suspended like 3 of them for one game and 4 for the other, something along those lines. And let's face it, Ewing was the beginning of the alphabet, so he missed the next game. So anyway, I agree with you. I don't think they'll suspend Love, but it's something to keep an eye on here.
Can you imagine what the TV ratings would be if they suspended players like that today? I mean, they would drop through the floor. It would. You talk about advertisers and the click rate and the viewership. The league would be refunding a ton of money. It's all about money, and I could see maybe they'll suspend Thompson for pushing the basketball into Draymond's face, which I have no problem with the person because I don't like the guy, but Tristan, the Draymond, I don't like him, but
right.
it is what it is. Hockey, we got the hockey thing going on. That comes up next, and then of course baseball is rocking and rolling. And any comments on those sports?
Well, I'll tell you, the hockey, it's interesting, and you've seen it, and you've told me off the air how juiced up, and I can't even imagine how juiced up the whole Las Vegas area is with this team. I mean, they've been an absolute godsend, of course. But I tell you what, this series didn't take long for it to get chippy and nasty and pretty surly, and these teams are every chance they get to take a whack at the other guy. I mean, it's been a great 2 games in Vegas to watch, and now obviously we go back to Washington for Game 3. I think this series is teetering on the edge of getting real full-blown nasty. I mean, these are almost like rivals. This is almost like Penguins Capitals or something like that, with teams that play each other every year in the playoffs. You expect this behavior, but these 2 teams, they're really on edge. And as you said at the top of this podcast, the save by Holtby the other night, I mean, whether you want to say it was lucky or not, I mean, that's one of the most incredible saves you've ever seen at a clutch time. I mean, the guy had the whole net, basically, and Holtby got the arm and the stick of the paddle out there and stopped it. And it was a little amazing that, in a series that's been kind of up and down, flying, that nobody could score in the third period at all. But let's face it, Jim, the Golden Knights had their chances. They had that 5-on-3 for 1 minute and 9 seconds. They really didn't get many pucks to the net. I didn't think they played very efficient during that, and I was sure they were going to score. With that power play and with the way they moved the puck so well, I thought for sure that tying this game, maybe even taking the lead, and they didn't get too many quality shots, and the Caps just kind of held them off. So, Ovechkin was very quiet in the third period, and Washington, got the puck out of their end as often as they could. They took whatever icings they had to take and survived it. And I'm looking forward to the next couple of games in Washington. I think you're going to see some real nastiness and some more great goaltending. Even with the amount of goals we've seen, we're going to see these 2 goalies at the top of their game.
I agree. It was a hell of a game, and it did get a lot nastier than Game 1, and I expect 3 and 4 are going to be very nasty as well. I was shocked that they weren't able to do more with that 5-on-3 than they did. That was very disappointing. I think that's where they really lost their chance to win the game. And the Holtby save, of course, lucky or not, he's a hell of a goalie, and he did a hell of a job on that play. But it was great. Baseball is great. Anything else before we close off, Joe?
Well, you know what? We're only really 1/3 through the season in baseball. I was just looking at some of the stats this morning, and I said, wow, you got 4 guys that have 18 home runs in Major League Baseball right now. I believe, off the top of my head, it's Bryce Harper, J.D. Martinez on the Red Sox, Jose Ramirez on the Indians, and I'm forgetting the 4th guy, and I apologize, but you got 4 guys with 18 homers, so obviously, the old phrase, on pace. These guys are all on pace for 50-plus home run years, and I know that the home run is, people love it. We're seeing more strikeouts than ever before. I mean, even the guys I mentioned are going to strike out 150-plus times. But, you've got a chance this year. It's possible. I mean, we're only coming up into the summer months now, and people like Bryce Harper playing in D.C., the ball's going to be carrying more, and it's going to be carrying more in the other cities like Atlanta and New York where they're going to be playing. I think it's, no one's talking about it that way. I mean, it's been a topsy-turvy year where teams like the Dodgers and the Cubs can't seem to get their footing. But I'm looking at some individual stuff, and I said, boy, you could have 4 or 5 guys hit 50-plus homers this year, and that would be pretty exciting and stuff. And if they're playing on teams that are division winners or contenders, it's going to add a lot more juice. So it's something down the road. I know here in New York, everyone's all pumped up on the Yankees. I mean, you got a guy like Stanton, who either hits 2 homers in one game and then strikes out his next 8 times. He could get hot this summer and hit 50 homers again. So it's just an individual thing. Usually I look at the team stuff. I'm more wrapped up in the wins and losses and the division and wild card races. But I thought it was interesting. I said, we're really at the 1/3 mark now, and you've got guys that are really, I mean, they put their foot on the gas here. You could have a bunch of 50-plus home run guys, and it could be exciting. And I know guys, there's some folks out there that I'm sure have future bets 30 years of some of these guys with home runs. So it could be interesting to follow the race of who's the home run champs at the end of the year, and if they're on contending teams, how many times do they get walked? I mean, it's Harper and J.D. Martinez. Are they going to start getting a lot of free passes because they're too dangerous? So still stuff to look at the rest of the way, and as you know, long way to go, and a lot of underachieving named teams so far in the bigs, and we're going to see if the summertime revives them a little bit because, as I said, the Cubs have been hot and cold. The Nationals are just starting to get a little fire. The Dodgers have been underachievers. Those are just the National League teams, and you've had some American League teams that have been highly disappointing as well. The Twins have been bad. Blue Jays have been a little worse than I think people thought. So we'll keep an eye on all of it and hopefully bang out a lot of winners, too.
A lot of good points there, Joe. I thank you for bringing that up about the home runs. That's very interesting for us to watch. And I want to thank you for taking the time to do this podcast. And last time people really enjoyed it, and I think we'll get a lot more listeners as well this time. So until maybe we'll do one next week, I'm sure we will actually. And thank everyone out there for listening. And Joe, we'll talk to you real soon. Thank you very much, bud.